I was 16, I wanted to be a fashion designer, in case you didn't get that impression already. But I wrote a letter to a company that was actually based in Japan called Comme des Garçons, and I want to work for this company. And I was 16, so I figured that what you do is you write a letter to Japan and then they hire you. And they actually wrote back through their New York offices and said, if you really want to work here, in 2 more years, when you're 18, write back and we'll see what we can do. So I waited 2 years and then wrote back and then said, yeah, I still want to work there. So then I moved to New York and I was given a job in the basement office of Comme des Garçons on Worcester Street. And was fired 2 months later. For stealing and other petty offenses. When I was fired, I was crying quite a bit, which the woman in charge asked me not to do. And I decided that I wasn't meant to do fashion. So at that time, I was living in the living room of 2 folks from Michigan who I didn't know, really, and looking through the want ads every day in the back of the Village Voice, and came across a job for a musician. I thought, I've never thought about doing that. Now, I had taken piano lessons and played piano and made music, but that to me was like reading. I never really thought, once you learn how to talk, you don't necessarily become professional unless you're going to be a stand-up comedian or something like that. Anyway, so this is easier than I thought because I wasn't even supposed to be a joke. So I thought, well, at the worst case, the job paid $700 a week, which was more money than I'd ever imagined you could really make doing anything. Was a lot more than I was getting paid at the internship at the fashion place. So I said, okay, I'll try. Now I figured, having never auditioned for a musical job before, that I would go in and I would have a meeting and they would give me songs to learn and we would talk about the band. I'd only been in high school bands and things like that. And we did have original songs, but I think we once learned someone else's song and played it very poorly, and it took about 2 or 3 months of practice before we got it, and then we never played it again. Went back to the original songs because no one could judge those. So I dressed up as most professional musicians did at the time, which I envisioned to be a sport coat and with the sleeves rolled up, and I got myself psyched up and really tried to use the power of visualization, which I'd just been learning about at that time, that you could kind of picture how things would go. I learned actually doing piano recitals to picture the recital going well, and then when it goes terribly wrong and you mess up, much like the way I feel now on this stage, you'll at least be able to compare it and really realize how poorly it's going compared to what you visualized. So I visualized that I would get to sit in a room, maybe with a piano, kind of like I imagined it would be like a ballet studio for some reason, with mirrors along one side and a railing, and this nice gentleman who was going to give me the stack of songs to learn, come back in 2 weeks, we'll review, we'll go over this as much time as you need. And I make my way down there on the subway, all by myself. I didn't have any friends really at that time. I had 2 roommates that I was irritating, but I don't think they would have considered themselves my friends. And then found my way to this place, which was in Greenwich Village. It was said on the sign, it said Cafe Wa in kind of bold colors. And I really didn't like the name, and I thought this is a bad omen. So I listened to a deeper voice that said, go in, and I went inside and went down some stairs, and there was actually a very nice woman there that I explained I'm answering this ad, and she had a slight look of concern mixed with fear, and she seemed to say, okay, well, you know what, come over here, and you could take a seat in the back, and I'll go tell the manager you're here. And I thought, this is great, he'll pull me into his office, and we'll talk. In the meantime, it was a packed house. It was very much like this. In fact, I haven't felt as much like I did that night until this night. And I really mean that. My heart is racing so much so that if I just sit still, I just could be seen to pulse. It's a very intense feeling. And so it was a packed house. It was a live music club. And it was a very boisterous audience, standing room only. People were singing along. I cannot exaggerate how fantastic the band was that was playing. I mean, world class. And again, it was in a place at really about this exact size, in the most eerie of ways. There were a lot of mirrors, much like this, and helped make the room somehow seem more claustrophobic in a strange way. And I found the one only person seat for this whole club, sat down, ordered a Sprite, and just waited for her to come and tell me when the manager was ready. So I'm watching this band, and then this gentleman who had been more like the side man stepped up and took over the mic, speaking with the audience. And it was very strange for me at this time to watch this guy. I was just fascinated by his confidence, because in my eyes, he had absolutely no reason to be confident. He looked like the friends I had in high school that were really into computer repair, which was a higher level of computer enthusiast, and was playing a Fender Stratocaster guitar with the strap at that height, that certain height that just doesn't seem like it can't possibly make it easier to play. So I'm watching this guy command the crowd, and I'm really amazed by his almost overconfidence. It turns out, of course, he's the host, and actually he's the manager. He's the manager. How amazing is this, that the manager of the club is playing in their world-class band? So he's bantering with the audience. He's talking about how great everyone has been so far, what an amazing lineup. And I understand that there's a young man somewhere in this audience tonight that's going to come up on stage here and audition for us. And the first thought was, shoot, someone else is going to get this gig. This other kid, this other guy, and I'm not going to even get a chance. And then he asked again if the young man would please show himself. And that's when I realized it was me. And I just realized I could sit there and not acknowledge myself and wait until they passed over, because he did want to keep the show moving. Or I could go up there. And at that time, that really surpassed any asking out a girl for the first time. It certainly surpassed having been fired from that job. I could tell this was the most overwhelming thing that was about to happen. And I was about to actually just cop out, because it was going to be, it wasn't going to go well. It was a living nightmare. And there was a very clear voice in my head. It wasn't my voice. It's kind of like the voice that when you're reading a book silently. It's just this voice that doesn't actually have a sound, of course. But somehow it's saying these words to you. So I don't really understand how exactly that works, or whose voice that is. But it's right, it's very intimate. You can't shut it out. And it said, this is what you're supposed to do. So I said, okay. So I got up and went on the stage. And as soon as I stood up, there was one of those prison spotlights. And so that I couldn't see anything except that I was very lit up. And right away, the host's face just sank, because he saw that I was 18 years old and probably going to be really amazing or really, really bad. And I managed to be both, I think. I walked up and I kind of scooted through the stage. It was very crowded. Once you get up there, you realize that everyone's kind of overlapped on top of each other. And the keyboard player specifically was not happy about me taking over his at least 3 racks of triple-tiered keyboards. And then a whole nother triple tier, and then the ones that you can't play behind you. That's always been, I can play 1, barely. So this idea of 9 was again, I just was very intimidated. And all the while this is happening, I can't believe that it's happening. And I still think about just fleeing. And I'll try to run through this part quick, because it's just very painful to think about. So the host is here, and he says, He says, okay, so what do you got for us? And my mouth was so dry, it was like all the moisture had gone to the palms of my hand and behind my knees. I could barely speak, and the mic was way too loud. I said, I didn't think it was gonna be like this. And before I could even finish uttering that, the whole crowd, the tension had just, they were having the greatest night of their lives, and it was just cut off. They were witnessing a nightmare. It wasn't even a train wreck. It really was more, it's like an existential shattering of a human soul. And this guy hosting realized that, and he said, okay, well, let's go all in. He said, well, how could you come to a thing and not have anything prepared? What song can you play? I said, I don't know. I really was thinking maybe I would play scales or something backstage. I didn't have the nerve to say that. I said, I didn't think it was gonna be like this. On every level. He said, well, name a song that you can play. And this is the part that I almost wasn't gonna tell you, because it's just, out of all the songs, some that I would know, like Happy Birthday or something, I could have played that. A song I've never played, still don't know how to play, haven't even tried to play, especially after this. Hadn't heard it earlier that day, had no particular relationship to the song, no special memories about the song. I said, Rocket Man by Elton John. And at that point, I almost felt like, looking back now, the voice in my head was like, where did that come from? What the hell are you doing? That's not how this is supposed to go. So he said, okay, Rocket Man. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me that this band knew every song. They knew Rocket Man. They had it memorized. No one gave them the sheet music. I could have called out any song. They go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pocket Bells, Canon in C. So they kick into it, and it sounds just like the album, except that there's no piano playing. And I say, whoa, wait, what key is it in? You know, I normally have the music, and even then I need a lot of practice. He said, well, it's on the same key as the album. I said, well, I don't know what keys is that in. And then I think some of the other band were starting to get irritated, it was starting to make them look bad. And then, so he said, what key do you want to play it in? And I said, C major. But the problem is, if you're even slightly familiar with Rocket Man, whatever key you started, within the first few seconds, it's changing and modulating, moving to about 18 different keys. It's probably one of the more complicated songs to try to just fake your way through. And I faked my way through it by turning the volume down on the keyboard. One of the great things about keyboards versus real pianos, just turn that down and have a ball. And then I realized I didn't know the words, so he said, I'll feed you the words one line as we go. I mean, and at this point, my face was so red and hot, the way it feels right now, where your ears are so hot that they hurt without even being touched. You can leave a thumbprint on your cheek. But eventually I got to the line where he said, and I think it's gonna be a long, long time, which was the one line I really did know. So I was excited, and as I started to sing that, he said, and I think it's gonna be a long, long time till you ever perform at Cafe Wah again. And in part, I was relieved, of course, like, good, let me get out of here, gee whiz. And at that moment, the crowd it was just so bad, something had to give. Because he wasn't letting up on me, and I don't blame him. But someone yelled, hey, let him finish, or you're doing great, kid. And the feeling that some other person that I didn't know, that had no reason, they cared about me. They were shouting for me, and like a whole sea change, the whole vibe changed to, come on, you can do it, like an underdog. But the thing, I really couldn't do it, so it wasn't like I won the game or scored this three-pointer and brought it all home. Finished the song very, very badly, left the stage, but there was still something kind of satisfying about it, I guess. The bass player put his hand on.